The hate that these guitars get is warranted. They're garbage. Hello friends, this is Justin Mara at the Tree Cave, and I'm here in my workshop portion of the studio, and on the bench is my Les Paul, my Gibson Les Paul Signature Series. You may never have heard of the Signature Series, and that's okay, but it is probably one of the most reviled guitars in history. Why? So if you know anything about the Les Paul, it is a legendary guitar. It was designed in conjunction with Gibson by Les Paul and the design team there, and it debuted in the early 1950s. It went over a series of redesigns through the mid-50s, and by 1958 it had pretty much set upon what the guitar is today. Solid body, single cutaway, humbucker guitar, and it was marketed primarily to jazz players who didn't really like it. And by 1961, the guitar was out of production. It wasn't until the 1970s that the Les Paul became the legendary axe that we all know and love today. Fast forward to 1996-ish, when I pick up my first guitar. Now, there was only one thing that I wanted to put in my hands, and that was a Gibson Les Paul. That didn't happen. I mistakenly got my parents to purchase a Gibson Blues Hawk, which is just an entirely different thing that we don't need to get into right now, but it kind of looked like a Les Paul, and I was happy at first. Fast forward a few more years, and I decided if I could not afford a Les Paul on my meager teacher's salary, maybe I could build one. Enter the Gibson Baldwin Signature Series. So what is it? This is mine, and you can see Signature Series. It looks very similar to the Les Paul Standard that we all know and love. It's not quite as heavy as a Les Paul because, uncharacteristically, it has a bolt-on neck. And it says right on the neck plate, Gibson Baldwin Music Education. It's bizarre. It has a single wraparound bridge. It doesn't have the stop tailpiece. I did not like the look of that, so I fitted mine with a trapeze tailpiece, much like the very first Les Pauls that were ever made. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. New Les Pauls will run you upwards of $2,500. Vintage Les Pauls from the late 50s to that 1960, the last year they were made, can cost $500,000. They are the holy grail of guitars. On my teacher's salary, I could not afford a Les Paul. So I found this eBay special, and when it came to me, it was in pieces. I got just the body, just the husk of the guitar, body and neck. And there started the journey. So what is the Baldwin series? And why do people hate it? Bare bones, it's actually not a terrible guitar. Gibson decided that they wanted to market a low-cost, entry-level guitar for players or people who just wanted a Les Paul, maybe to hang on the wall, maybe to play, who knows. They were trying to compete with the big box stores that were selling guitar amplifier kits. So Gibson partnered with Baldwin Pianos, which I think they owned at the time, and they put this monstrosity out. A Les Paul with a mahogany body and a bolt-on neck. And the guitar itself and its construction and existence isn't what outrages people, but it tends to be the way in which the individual pieces were all put together in this guitar. Gibson already owns a entry-level, low-cost brand, Epiphone. And Epiphone is a legendary brand that which has actually existed longer than Gibson. The Beatles played Epiphones. That's supposed to be their cost-friendly version. Guitars in the Gibson line that cost $1,200 or $2,500, in the Epiphone line may run you $500. And they're mass-produced and made in machines overseas in Japan and Korea and now China. Gibson was always hyper-vigilant about what they put their name on, hence the Epiphone branding on guitars that looked almost identical to their flagship guitar. And then this. For Gibson to put their name on a mass-produced, inexpensive, and frankly cheap Chinese toy was just the definition of egregious. It's insulting to anybody who has spent thousands of dollars on these guitars. My guitar is a great example of that. You can't see, but when you would run your hand along the neck like this to slide up and down the frets of the guitar, it would physically cut you. My hands have bled playing this guitar. How do we fix that? Well, it's really hard, it turns out. You need a whole guitar setup. You need radius keys. You need a fret leveler. You need a recrowning file. You need fret guards. You need polish. You need to watch a lot of YouTube videos. These frets are garbage. Well, the frets themselves aren't garbage, but the workmanship that was put into this guitar, frankly, there are immaculate Chinese guitars that are mass-produced. I own a couple. This is just insulting. And the hate that these guitars get is warranted. They're garbage. But if you've got a little spare change and you're looking for a project, or if you know a good guitar tech or luthier, they may be able to fix it. So now we've redressed all our frets and recrowned them, polished it, cleaned it, and we're going to put the strings back on it and see if it plays. And here's the rub, guys. I've arrived at a place in my life where if I wanted to, I could go to a store tomorrow or hop on the internet and just buy a brand new Les Paul Standard in Honeyburst with zebra pickups, the guitar of my dreams, and have it arrive on my doorstep tomorrow. But I've also arrived at a place in my life where that just feels like the definition of waste. All right, so it's all strung up, and the only thing left to do is to see if I got it right. Feels nice and smooth. It's got good resonance. No fret buzz. Here's the test. Nothing for the string to get stuck on. I mean, the real test will come in the live room when I plug it in. So what can we say about the Les Paul Special? It could have been a great entry-level guitar if Gibson had taken the time to manage the quality control process to have an instrument worthy of having its name on it. Instead, we have the most reviled guitar in history. But I love this guitar. And I love it because it's so reviled. Yes, I could spend $2,500 on a brand new Les Paul Classic or an Epiphone Les Paul Classic and have a guitar that everyone else has, and a guitar that looks like everybody else's Les Paul, and a guitar that plays like everybody else's Les Paul. I have a unique guitar here that nobody else has. Maybe that nobody else wants, but that's okay. I think back to being a kid and my dad telling me stories about the 1960s and 70s and all of those sleeper cars that would pull up next to you at a stoplight only to blow you off the line. And that's what this guitar is. It's a sleeper. It has that signature series on the headstock, and so people aren't going to give it a second thought, but if you actually sit down and play it, it plays like the Les Paul of my dreams. When this guitar was new, it was $100, and you could get it at like Macy's and Best Buy, JCPenney, places like that. I bought this for scrap parts, $50, $56 for the pickups, let's say another $30 in odds and ends of materials, the knobs, the trapeze tailpiece. Gibson could have put this guitar out for $200 and had a great entry-level player guitar. Instead, they slapped their name, which they had protected for 80 years, on a piece of garbage. If that's what the guitar would have cost Gibson, what did it cost me? Time, effort, energy, 12 years, a global pandemic, and a few $100s worth of luthier tools. So yeah, totally worth it. I've got the Les Paul signature. I'm going into my 1965 Fender Pro Reverb, not a reissue. And I'm going to play clean first, and then I'm going to kick on some dirt. The drive pedal is a DoD Mystic Blues Overdrive, and we'll go from there. Sounds good. Okay, so we're back in the shop, obviously, and I'm just raising the action ever so slightly, because at the end of this day, this guitar will never be perfect. And that's okay. It was never supposed to be perfect. It was supposed to be a shortcut to a dream. And it is. When I strap this guitar on, I am 16 years old again, looking at the pictures of Slash and Jimmy Page on my bedroom wall. And that's exactly what I wanted this guitar to be, and it is. What are you actually paying for when you buy a $2,500 Gibson? Well, you're paying for that journey that I took over 13 years. You're starting at the end of that journey. You're paying for an experienced builder to perform those tasks and cut that journey out for you. And I think there's still a Les Paul in my future, but just not right now. Raise the action a little bit, we're going to try it out, and I've accomplished everything I set out to do. The frets are nice and smooth, the strings don't get stuck on the edges of the frets if they go slightly over. If I bend them over to the edges of the fretboard, they don't get stuck anymore. It feels good, it plays good, the neck is straight. And what more can you ask for in a guitar? And if you do come across a signature series Gibson, don't be afraid, because with a little TLC and the right builder, these guitars can play great, and you can still find them kicking around on the internet for dirt cheap. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get more notifications when videos come up as they do. This was a little bit of a divergence from the normal video that pops up on this channel, but I had fun. I hope you did too, and think scrappy, be brave. I'll see you next time.
There's nothing more to say.